The time is just gone 9:37 a.m. as we continue with the broadcast this morning, and we are now focusing on former State President Jacob Zuma making a political comeback. But it is official now that the former president cannot be the president of the country after this year's general elections because of his criminal record. And to unpack all of this, we joined by the CEO at Election Management Consultancy Agency of Africa, EMCA, Lulu. Lulu, good morning to you, and as always, an absolute pleasure having you with us.
Thank you very much, Nayet. I'm well. How are you?
Yes, now doing very well, and as I mentioned, it's been a while since we've spoken, but always important getting your views, getting your unpacking of developments, and in particular, we are talking about former President Jacob Zuma. Just your thoughts. He wants to make a political comeback, but the IEC is saying no. You cannot be the president of the country because of your criminal record.
Yeah, in terms of the Constitution sets out the criterion on what or how people can actually be contestants or how they can be candidates for any election, whether it's at national and provincial or presidential elections. And unfortunately, in terms of the Constitution, it says that if a person has been arrested for more than a period of 12 months or has had an option of a fine for that period and has been arrested and has a criminal record, unfortunately, they cannot stand as a candidate. And it's always been there. So when you look at President Jacob Zuma, his prison term, if I'm not mistaken, he was sentenced to 15 months. I know that he didn't serve the full 15 months, but then he was sentenced to a prison period of 15 months. And on the basis of that, that automatically disqualifies him from being a candidate for the upcoming elections.
Well, obviously there was a lot of fanfare, and he was very, very hopeful to make a political comeback. And I'm not too sure at this point in time, what a big dent this has made to his political ambitions by being disqualified.
Look, in terms of him, if the political party that he's a member of right now still wants him to become the president of the party, it's been perpetuated in the media that MK wants him to be the president of the party, nothing really bars the party from actually having him as their president. But for him to be a candidate contesting for an election, unfortunately, he will not qualify. After 5 years, after 5 years, I think he can expunge this prison, this sentencing after 5 years, and after 5 years, then he should be able to contest those elections. But as far as the political party that he's aligning to is concerned, if they would like him as the president of that party, nothing stops. I mean, the IEC does not make provisions and does not set up a criterion, in my understanding, of who political parties choose to have in their leadership or as part of their office bearers. It's only where it comes to public interest, and him having had a criminal record is obviously in the interest of the public, and it's mainly about protecting the integrity of the electoral of the actual election itself, and ensuring that people are adhere to the criterion that is required.
Yes, I think, and just looking at from where you're coming from, and with coming from the Election Management Consulting Agency of Africa, just in terms of management of elections, and this is going to be in the build-up to the elections. Issues like these may crop up from time to time, and there may be other issues. And just looking at South Africa, looking at the IEC in particular, in terms of managing this process, and I'm sure there could be other potential issues that they would have to deal with. How are we placed? How are we placed ahead of the elections? Yeah, and especially when it comes to making crucial decisions like the one that they've had to make in the case of Jacob Zuma.
Look, in terms of, I think my understanding of what you're asking is how will we know with other candidates if there are similar candidates with other party lists? Am I correct?
Yes.
And if that is the case, I think the public often in the IEC has relied on the public in terms of the verification and the confirmation of people on the candidates list, the IEC does not extend to that extent. The IEC gives a criterion, obviously, to political parties to say, as political parties, this is what you need to adhere to. Then political parties would bring those party lists, or in this particular instance, it would also be independents. They would bring those lists, and then they would go through the process. Now, as far as making sure that additional requirements have been met by these candidates, that is something that the onus lies on the political party to do that. However, members of the public have in the past been the ones that actually alerted the IEC to say, or during a process of objections, because in the candidate nomination process there's also an objection process. So during that particular process, then you'd have members of the public coming to the IEC to say, we know that candidate so and so in this particular area was declared insolvent and therefore is no longer qualified to stand as a candidate. We know in this particular instance candidate so and so was actually arrested, and he has been, and as a result cannot stand. And then that's when the IEC would then verify with the political party and do any additional verification to ensure that that person indeed no longer qualifies to participate in that election. And then in that process, they are then removed from that particular party list. So the onus rests on both the political party, the candidate themselves, and also to a very large extent to on civic society also, or as well, to come through and make those identifications, to make the IEC aware that a particular candidate is not in alignment with the requirements of the Constitution.
Well, I'm certain going forward, and when these candidates lists come out, political parties will be watching very, very closely, and not only within themselves, but you would have other political parties watching another political party, considering where we are, and these lists obviously will be scrutinized with a fine tooth comb.
Absolutely. No, definitely will definitely be scrutinized with a fine tooth comb this time around.
Yes, and also just looking at Jacob Zuma in particular, and we know within the ANC and the
Mm,
feelings and the sentiments that have been expressed towards Jacob Zuma, often being said that yeah, if there's someone that's been bigger than the ANC, it has been Jacob Zuma. The
mm.
whole issue surrounding MK, the logo issue that has been playing out in court, and we just see this acrimony between the two at this point in time. So we are in interesting times ahead of this election, Lulu.
Very interesting times again ahead of these elections. Also, I think we also need to take into account that there has been rumors that it's not only Jacob Zuma who seems to have defected to the MK. If defected is the word that we should be using, there has been allegations further that there's other people, high profile people within KZN who have also sort of joined the MK and also in Pumalanga. So I think the ANC particularly will have its eyes really properly peeled to make sure that the people that are actually on the ANC PR list, party list, also do not appear on the MK party list, because that whole exercise of the scrutinization and of the candidates list is to actually make sure that there's no repetition of candidates of this political party in another political party. I think if you remember when the EFF first came to the fold, a similar exercise went ahead where you saw a lot of people that were in the IE that were regarded to have been in the ANC. They were also found on the EFF list, and there were objections that were raised against that. So I think even in this election, we're likely going to see something like that, and it really would be. We're up for interesting times in it. I think we can just be confident and say it would really be interesting to see how these elections actually pan out.
Well, certainly, because I think this is going to be one of the most crucial elections. It could possibly define the future of this country. There's all this talk about coalition governments as well. For the very first time, we may see a coalition government at the national level. So these are interesting times, and as soon as that date is announced, it's going to be all systems go.
Definitely, everybody's waiting for that date, because once that date is announced, it's all systems go. It's basically now deadline on deadline. What happens with voter registration? When is candidate nomination opening and closing? Campaigning. I mean, we're already seeing campaigns are in full swing with a lot of political parties. There are some of those political parties that you can see that they're still fledgling, but the parties with the biggest stakes, you can already see that they're already playing to the theatre, making sure that they actually put in their bids out right now, so that people are aware that, that they want to be voted for and they want to go back into office. So everybody's waiting for that time.
Well, let's watch your space, Lulu. But for now, thank you. Thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Lulu White with us this morning, CEO at Election Management Consulting Agency of Africa, ahead of the 2024 elections. We're going to go for a break. We come back and we'll be taking a look at matric achievements.